Hi, everyone. I'm Amanda Frederick. I'm the Program Communication Manager with Women Who Code. I'm here to introduce Shreya Singh with you. Today, she's going to talk to you about inclusive UX, AI, AR for deaf-mute learning. I want to tell you a little bit about Shreya so you can be introduced to her before she gives her presentation. So Shreya is a computer science and engineering graduate from Rajasthan Technical University. Her startup, Learn Sign, teaches deaf and mute children Indian Sign Language using AI and AR. With a history of designing for startups for Fortune 500, her work has been embraced by over 10,000 users. From software development to user experience design, Shreya's journey is marked by relentless pursuit of user-centric solutions. Her passion for human-computer interaction, coupled with diverse interests in open source software, learning sciences, data visualization, and more, paints her as a multidisciplinary technologist. I'm really excited to host you today, and we're really excited to hear what you have to present with us.
Okay, happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me today. Hello, everyone, and I'm Shreya Singh, a product designer specializing in user experience design and human-computer interaction. I lead my own social enterprise named LearnSign, which I started with my co-founders in January this year. Talking about LearnSign, LearnSign is a web application for deaf and mute children to learn Indian Sign Language or ISL using 3D hand sign models and gamification with augmented reality. We are attempting to create a one-of-a-kind space that combines functionality and real-time learning with fun for specially able children in India. We're very hopeful about the future and about the things that we have in store for our startup. And if we get the chance today, I'll be sure to elaborate more about our platform. Disclaimer, though I'm not an expert and there are much more talented and experienced designers and product managers out there that can speak way more concisely and eloquently, in my opinion. But everything I say today will be coming from my own experience, and it would also include insights from our in-house R&D work for LearnSign. All right, so let's get started. Talking about the challenge that we have today. We hear so much about inclusivity in tech today. All the hiring processes and companies advocate for inclusivity, diversity, innovation in their organizations. So I believe that all of us are already familiar with this concept and the importance of having diversity in our organizations. What we are going to talk about today would not be about inclusivity in our organizations, but rather it would be about how we as designers, developers, managers can attempt to cater to deaf and mute users, which would basically increase our target audiences by multiple number of times, depending on what our product is. And everybody is human and wants to participate in work, use technology, whether it's a difference in skin color or a difference in disabilities, everybody wants to be a part of the community. Well, that's what I believe in. And deaf and mute individuals too would want to use your products. But before we leap towards making our brands more interdisciplinary, we first need to educate the young deaf and mute users. And what we realized with LearnSign was that across the globe, there were quite a number of platforms that catered to specially able children and specially able learning at that. But out of all of them, approximately 90% of them were created without usability in mind. They were merely functional, not usable. So they were innovative in their inception, but fundamentally weak in their execution. For example, there were a lot of websites, plain web pages with lessons for teaching children American Sign Language or ASL, British Sign Language, Chinese Sign Language, and Indian Sign Language, so on and so forth. However, looking at the application, even an able-bodied child, realistically speaking, wouldn't be motivated to actually use those platforms on their own accord unless they were asked to by their parents or teachers. Well, let alone hearing or speaking impaired children. We collected all of this information while we were doing, conducting literature surveys for our research and development work, and also while we were doing a preliminary user research. And while investigating reasons for these challenges, for users in existing platforms, I came to the conclusion that this situation could be because of a number of reasons. First of all, lack of user-centered design. Many of these platforms may have been created with the intention of helping specially able children, but they often lacked user-centered design approach. And user-centered design involves understanding the needs, preferences, and capabilities of the target audience, or the target users, and designing the platform according to that. And without this approach, the platforms were not effectively addressing the unique challenges and requirements of the users. My second challenge that I figured out was the insufficient motivation and engagement. Usability goes beyond mere functionality. We all know that. It encompasses how engaging and motivating a platform is for its users. In the case of specially able children, it's crucial to design platforms that are, not just functional but also enjoyable and engaging. Because for children that are deaf and mute, they have one source of the visuals are need to be much more engaging for them. Many existing platforms fell way short in providing a motivating and fun learning experience. Um, which is essential for sustained usage, especially for children. In this next slide, there was another challenge that I found out. It was limited accessibility features and failure to consider individual differences. Well, especially able children may require specific accessibility features, to navigate and interact with educational content effectively. Many times, though, deafness and speaking impairments may be accompanied by other disabilities, like a cognitive disability, like ADHD, for example. So, as designers, developers, managers, and product owners, we need to make sure a product has a holistic approach. Well, when we are designing these features for our solutions, such features could include adaptive technologies, assistive devices, or customized interfaces. Platforms that lack these that lack these type of features can pose usability challenges for their target users. Many times, organizations that haven't been formed with the long-term vision in sight, they fail to consider the whole picture of the products or solutions, which have been the case for most of these companies and the websites that have educational products for deaf and mute people. These companies fail to consider the individual differences. Especially able children have diverse needs, diverse abilities, and as I mentioned before, some have additional cognitive or physical challenges that need to be addressed in the platform's design. Failing to consider these individual differences can result in a lack of usability for a significant portion of the target audience. Now, talking about this point, I would have to say that a significant lot of the existing products in this space where they didn't have teacher or parent involvement. They bank on the assumption that children on their own would engage with the platform, independently. However, specially able children very often benefit from guidance and support from teachers, guardians, or parents. Platforms that do not involve educators or caregivers in the learning process may not be as effectively integrated into the child's education or the curriculum that's followed in the schools for deaf and mute children. Another thing, lastly, I realized was that sometimes we need to consider the cultural and linguistical significance and nuances of a sign language. For platforms aimed at teaching sign languages like Indian Sign Language, it's crucial to acknowledge the delicate cultural and cultural and linguistical differences in Indian Sign Language or ISL. Facial expressions and both of the hands are used to make a conversation, and we had to develop a machine learning model knowing that it would have to recognize facial, body, and hand gestures simultaneously. And the failure to do so can lead to a lack of relevance and usability for the target audience. Now, that we have some idea about the challenges faced by hearing and speaking impaired users, I feel confident enough to discuss how these challenges can be addressed. I'll be barely scratching the surface today, but I do have a lot of resources that everyone here can access for additional learning about the subject if you'd like to. Maybe you'll have access to those resources by the end of the session. But before I dive in further, however, I would like to mention that I do understand that discussing a solution is way easier than actually implementing it in an organization or an already existing product. But I also know that knowing and recognizing a problem is a first step to address a problem, and engaging in a discussion to combat a pain point of a user is never futile. So different organizations have different priorities, but if you as a designer or a developer or a product manager are wondering how can I make this product of mine more inclusive, and if you want to increase the target audience of your product, then hearing about potential solutions, even if they come from an ill-experienced person like me, might prove to be handy and may as well be a very favorable place to validate our hypothesized pain points. Now, let's start. How can you go about making your products inclusive? Well, this is a no-brainer, but the first thing we can do is thinking using a user-centered design approach. We can collaborate closely with specially able individuals, their caregivers, educators, and experts in the field to gather customized insights, basically, and then use this information to inform the design and development process, very similar to what we did for LearnSign. And we can encourage engagement and motivation by incorporating gamification elements, interactive content, rewards, and personalized learning paths to keep our users engaged and motivated to use our platform voluntarily. We can also update our accessibility features after conducting accessibility audits. We can adhere to accessibility standards like the WCAG standard and provide options like text-to-speech, closed captions, screen readers, customizable interfaces, and so on and so forth. We can even cater to individualized learning by offering adaptive learning pathways, like what Duolingo does, a very good example. Personalized content recommendations and options to adjust the difficulty level to meet a child's unique needs. We can also brainstorm to think of ways to involve teachers and parents that a lot of platforms are not doing right now. We can do this by creating features that allows educators and caregivers to track progress of the students or their wards, provide feedback, and customize the learning experience. In this case, we'll have to consider offering resources and guidance for parents and teachers to support the child's learning journey, though. And before I forget, to address the cultural and linguistical nuances, an organization can choose to collaborate with experts in the specific sign language or cultural context to ensure that the content is accurate, culturally relevant, and respectful of local customs or norms. I'm saying this for organizations that are creating for an international audience in mind, that are designing for or incorporating foreign or non-native sign language into their products. So these are some of the ways we can address or start to address the pain points that we discussed today. So now, where does artificial intelligence and augmented reality come into the equation, though? Well, to increase our target audience and make our product more inclusive, I would highly recommend that we use AI and AR. The biggest reason being that it makes achieving inclusivity so much more convenient. And this is also where senior UXers and managers would play a key role. The seniors would need to train designers to understand inclusive design principles, which involves designing products and experiences that can be used by as many people as possible, regardless of their abilities or disabilities, which will ultimately create a product that's usable, not just functional. Why do we need to educate and train? Though before I go further, let's talk about why do we need to educate and train our designers and developers? Because I think investing in educating the organization about the importance of accessibility and inclusive design could be a good option, especially when you are talking about the global market. This could also be a good option for companies that have separate funds for their CSR activities. And this will ensure that all the team members actually understand their roles in creating an inclusive product. So I do think it's worthwhile to invest in educating your organizations in training, accessibility and adaptability, uh, uh, in their products, and inculcate these values in their employees. The senior UXs and managers could also help their juniors in learning accessibility testing by regularly conducting accessibility testing with specially able users to identify and address usability issues. In user testing, they would continuously gather feedback from target audience through usability testing to iteratively improve the user experience. And through diverse team collaboration, they will be able to build diverse and multidisciplinary teams that include individuals with varying backgrounds, abilities, and perspectives to ensure a broader range of insights and ideas. And adhering to accessibility standards compliance will ensure that the product meets the legal requirements and the best practices. Having a simple feedback loop will help in establishing mechanisms for users to provide feedback easily, and actively use this feedback to make improvement is very important, because feedback is constant. It never stops. Um, let's see what's on my next slide. So how can we leverage artificial intelligence and augmented reality to design our products and make them more inclusive? Well, designers, developers, and product managers can leverage AR and AI technologies to address the pain points of users in the context of specially abled education and inclusive design by using different kinds of tools that we have available today. For example, designers can use user-centric AR and VR design to create augmented reality and virtual reality experiences that prioritize user needs, preferences, and limitations. This could involve crafting immersive, interactive, and engaging AR environments tailored to the cognitive and physical abilities of a specially abled child. For example, for children with visual impairments, they could have, who are not able to, who are partially blind or cannot see or are nearsighted, they can have a augmented reality experience where they have objects appear near to them using assistive technology devices. Like smart goggles that we see these days. They can use gamification to incorporate gamification elements into AR experiences to make learning enjoyable and motivating. This might include interactive challenges with rewards and progress tracking within the AR interface. And with accessibility design, they can ensure that AR interfaces are designed with accessibility in mind. This includes providing customizable UI elements, text-to-speech support, and compatibility with assistive technologies. Let's see what can developers and product managers do. So developers can implement AI-powered personalized algorithms to personalize the learning experience for each child based on their progress, uh, mm, uh, preferences, and abilities. And they can also integrate AI to provide real-time feedback to students as they interact with AI content. For example, at LearnSign, our machine learning model can analyze sign language gestures in real time and offer corrections or praise during lessons. They can use natural language processing or NLP to enable voice interactions within AI environments. This would allow students to practice and communicate in sign language and receive feedback or translations in real time. Something like sign language transcription has been done before with with one or two applications that have successfully implemented it. We have a lot of research that has been done in this field also before as well. So all of I think I have included a lot of relevant articles in my resources. So if you'd like to check it out, please feel free to. And product managers can work on incorporating user feedback, having feature prioritization. They can work on continuous improvement on such features. They can also allocate resources based on their commitment to inclusivity, depending on their product and organization. And they can also have some legal and ethical considerations in mind when they develop products. Next, I was thinking of introducing you guys to these two couple of awesome case studies. And these are thoroughly researched case studies that I found on the internet. And they're really ideal examples of the points I have highlighted in my session so far. And if you would like to check them out, please feel free to when the session is over. As mentioned in the slide, the links to these are mentioned in the resources document that I have created. And the resource links are all listed at the end of the document. Now, coming to my next slide, future directions for inclusivity in UX. There are so many possibilities. We might have something like universal design principles, which would emphasize universal design principles to create products and experiences that are accessible and usable by the widest possible range of people, including those with disabilities. This would involve diverse user needs from the start of the design process. We might even have something like AI-powered personalization, where we would be leveraging artificial intelligence to provide personalized experiences that adapt to individual user needs and preferences. I think this would also include accessibility features that are tailored to users to with disabilities. Something like multimodal interfaces, which right now is considered not feasible, might as well become common in the future. Exploring multimodal interfaces that allows users to interact with technology using a combination of inputs such as gestures, touch, voice. This would accommodate a really wider range of abilities. Please let me know in the comment section if you have any ideas about what the future holds for UX when it comes to inclusivity. And most of all, in future, virtual and augmented reality will become extremely common as a feature across web applications. And that would not just be limited to applications for the specially able, but rather for all daily activity-based applications. I think this would, I think advancing inclusive design principles and virtual and augmented reality experiences would make VR and AR content accessible to individuals with disabilities. So they would become so much more common. We already have a lot of applications for individuals with visual impairments that have AR and VR. So I don't think it's far off to mention that in future we might as well have AR and VR in all kinds of applications. In future, we might perhaps even have something like empathy-driven design. So this might involve cultivating empathy among UX professionals to better understand the challenges faced by users with disabilities and designing with empathy as a core value. And something that I already see happening are AI-powered accessibility tools. In future, we might be developing AI-powered accessibility tools to that assist designers and developers in identifying and fixing accessibility issues in real time. So, in short, the possibilities are endless. I think our session is ending on a hopeful note for the future of UX and inclusivity. And what wonders we will be performing using these two in our products, only future can tell. Thank you so much for having me today. And I hope we have enough time for questions, since I do believe I took a longer time in my presentation today.
No, you took the perfect amount of time. That was super interesting. And there were some comments in the chat. When you were talking about the sign language, Anne had commented that the facial expressions are important in American Sign Language too, and
Yeah.
to see the translators work. And can you speak a little bit more about the sort of the whole body experience and getting this to work with your AI and the AR?
Yeah, so I can talk about this. So what happens is that there are different kinds of machine learning models that we can train to, we can train to detect your facial expressions, your hand gestures, and even body gestures. So currently we already have a lot of projects and tutorials to build a project to detect for detecting your facial expressions and hand detection. ASL is one-handed. Um, so when we have projects that detect ASL, they are not real time. They can only detect objects that have already been fed into them before. What we were trying to build with LearnSign was we were trying to build an application that would detect sign language, and not just in real time, but also take the information from the user in real time as well. So whatever so when users would be using the platform, they would not just be doing the lesson, but they would also be updating our machine learning database as well. So we will be taking data from them and retraining our model and making it more accurate as the time goes on. But yeah, incorporating the detection of your facial features and body gestures can be a bit tricky, especially if you have a complex facial gesture. For example, sometimes in Indian Sign Language, we have the two eyebrows rising up and the smile as well. So we need to detect that, and it's difficult to do that because what happens is that we have different points and or modules. I could say that. So they are put into your, for example, in object recognition, we have different points on different regions of the face, basically. So we would have to use multiple number of points to detect complex facial gestures, and that too, difficult to combine the facial gesture recognition with the hand gesture recognition. It's difficult to do the both of them at the same time. That's what we realize.
Yeah, I love that what you're really highlighting is how much of the human element is involved in the development of technology for humans, because I think that can be really easy to forget, right? I think we have time for one more question, and then we have another session of the people we need to get to. Please don't rush. Are there any specific user interface elements or navigation features that should be enhanced to improve usability for those who are deaf and hard of hearing?
I would have to say that at the most basic level, the typography and the color scheme is very important when it comes to designing for deaf and mute children, because we realize that since they don't have their hearing senses, and also some of them they are not able to speak. The one sense that they rely on the most is their visuals. So we need to make sure that we strike a balance to not make the colors too bright on their eyes, because some of them might even be sensitive, to sensitive to visuals. But we need to strike a balance enough to make them to attract them towards our application, to motivate them to continue to engage with the platform, and not just and voluntarily, as I spoke before, not just because their teachers or parents are asking them to do so. So the typography to give them a sense of approachability when it comes to the product, and not using complex words or a dull interface. It's important to keep the color, to strike a balance with the colors and the typography that you use in your interface.
I love those two concrete tips and some practical things that people can start implementing right away. And I have some great news, which I thought we were done at half hour. We have more time for questions. So we actually have a couple in the chat, which is pretty exciting. So Nia would like to know, how do you think the technology could influence the evolution of sign language?
We are already influencing sign language using technology, because we were able to we currently have a lot of applications. I think only a year ago there weren't many applications on sign language, but these days I've seen on social media that so many people are creating personal projects on open source to detect, using detecting sign language, object recognition projects, and so many people are doing great work in this field using technology. And I think open source could be something that would really revolutionize the sign language evolution, because this would allow people from all over the world to collaborate together and contribute to the sign language database, basically. Because one thing that we realize is that to recognize, when it comes to sign language recognition, you need to have a really robust machine learning data set, which doesn't exist. And there are so many sign languages in the world. And also, the another problem is that there's no standardized way to understand how many exactly sign languages exist in the world, because some sign languages are just informally used. They're not described in books or whatever. People just use them in some regions, remote regions of the world. We just use them just so, and they don't really document the sign language anywhere. So it's difficult to pinpoint exactly how many number of sign languages we have in the world, and it's even more harder to collect data from people, because we would basically need to train our machine learning model. We would need to have different people doing the same science again and again. And when you realize there are so many signs in one sign language, it becomes even more challenging. But I think this is why I believe there are so many people in the world, and with open source, if we can all collaborate together, we would have so much more progress when it comes to sign language.
So we have other machine, even if someone's not doing sign language projects, we have machine learning developers and technologists here. And so you're describing a really interesting problem that you need to train a machine, but you don't have enough to train it with. So in your experience, or what could someone do in that instance? Is it better not to use the machine if you can't train it properly? Or what would be your next actions in order to get the data that you needed to be able to train your machine correctly?
But our approach, I can only talk about our approach because this was the most feasible to us. Because coming from, from my experience, I saw a problem, and we decided to create a solution. So I think that this might be similar to Learn Science. What we did was that we were working with a deaf and mute school nearby. And what we were doing was that we were partnering with the institution, and we asked them that please use this platform in your school and have the students, do their homework on our platform, and they would record videos, and we use them to train our platform. So this is a flawed solution, essentially, because it depends on the number of children from the school. And what we used to do was that the children who were doing their homework correctly would be used to train a machine learning platform to make them understand that this is the right solution. And when they did the sign incorrectly, was used to train that this is the incorrect sign. But then again, this is a flawed solution because it majorly depends on the number of children in the school, and not really a reliable way to collect data. But this was a good place to start. And I think I have seen a few other organizations that were creating tech solutions for this problem. They were also doing something similar. So I think that this could be a good place to start.
Okay, perfect. And you're talking a lot about working with other people, and here working with children in this instance. And Kimberly has a question. She wondered if you could speak more about having empathy for users when developing products with inclusivity. And so maybe you could speak to like actually the empathy for developing them with inclusivity in mind, but also this actual development process of working with actual people, right, in the way that you were.
So it's really difficult to, when we are designing for users that are just like us, it's really more convenient, essentially, because we know from experience that, okay, if I were a user, we can think of ourselves in their place, and then imagine using our product or whatever product that we're designing as users ourselves, and then pinpoint what the pains that they could be facing using this application, and so on and so forth. But if we are designing for users that are different from us, it becomes difficult to empathize with them because we are not in their position. It's we can attempt to sympathize with users, but it would be difficult to actually empathize and understand what problems they could be going through. But this problem can be combated if we conducted more usability audits, collaborated more with users that have disabilities. And I think we can also, what we can do is that we can also have more honest feedback loops. We can incorporate and implement changes that are needed, and we can ask users to have a more transparent um uh, you know relationship with the users, because we need to make them feel that yes, we are designing a feature for you, but please let us know where we can help you with, because many times this is not clear with applications that they are not sincere enough with their products. They don't make their users, especially able users, realize that they actually want to help, because as I said before, many applications were just functional and not very usable. So I don't understand why anybody, seeing some of the applications, I didn't understand why anybody, let alone specially able users, would use those websites, because they were not usable at all. I didn't understand where the start button was, or where could I log in as a user or sign up. The first steps as a user were not apparent to me. So they were not clear to me, the first step. What we can start with is that helping the user realize that we are sincere and transparently and honestly approach them.
I love that. And, something I think is interesting is you started your talk by telling us that you weren't an expert, which I deeply disagree with. You seem super knowledgeable about this. But as a non-expert, like if other people are interested in this topic or machine learning, can you tell us just a little bit, the last couple of minutes, your journey? How did you arrive here with all of this knowledge base, and how did you get started on this project?
This would be interesting. My co-founders and I started this project as our final year project in my bachelor's course, and what we used to travel via bus every day, and we had a deaf and mute school nearby. I know this sounds very fake, but what happened was that we used to see two deaf children and their mother on the bus every day, and we never talked with them because we didn't know sign language. So we thought, what would we do by approaching them? We couldn't even communicate with them. And but one day they were talking with their mother, and the mother wasn't speaking, wasn't signing, but she was able to understand her children. So we thought that was interesting, and since we knew each other because we saw each other on the bus every day, but a slight nod that you give to strangers, familiar strangers. So it was similar to that. So one day we approached her out of the blue, just like that, and we asked her to help us communicate with her children, and she told us that they weren't using any specific sign language. They were just doing signs, casual signs that everybody can understand, like I want to go there, or they were not using any proper sign language. So when we asked her why, she told us that they couldn't understand what the teacher was teaching them at school, and we thought that we just wanted to know more, because at this point we were curious. And she told us that the sign language that they teach at school is a combination of American Sign Language and Indian Sign Language and a couple other sign languages. There was no proper curriculum, and it was a local deaf school. This is not the deaf school that we partnered with afterwards. So we thought that why was this the case? Why was why did sign language why didn't sign language have a proper curriculum? And this was the start of our investigation, basically. And we talked to her more. We researched online, and we realized that having a curriculum for sign language is difficult, and actually there are very very less amount of teachers that are trained to teach sign language. So for local schools in a remote area, like where she was coming from, it was even difficult to have a single teacher that was the teacher was also not trained to teach sign language. So it was difficult to actually have properly trained teachers teaching sign language, and also we realized that for children with deaf and mute disabilities, for children who are deaf and mute, it's important to have personal interaction with the teacher. So if the ratio of a class is 1 to 50, it's extremely difficult to go to each child and then give them personalized attention. And this was a problem. We realized there was a need to have intervention of technology. For example, if in a class of 1 to 50, or if each child had a tablet and they could use an application where they could just learn the hand signs using 3D models, and zoom in and zoom out, view virtual reality animations, they could be able to spend their time, utilize their time basically, and learn about sign languages. And we realized that this is a problem. We do not have enough trained teachers for deaf and mute children, and we can combat this problem with after designing a tech platform that could teach children sign language and intervene in the process.
I love it. I love, sorry to interrupt you. We're gonna just wrapping up, and I just wanted to thank you for sharing that with us. And I think that at the core of everything that we're trying to do as technologists, right, is just to make the human experience better. And thank you so much for sharing that story with us, and for all of the work that you're doing for the deaf mute community in involving AR and AI with that. We had a lot of really positive comments in the chat. You've shared some great resources that our members can go back to. And also, I think that they can reach out to you if they have any other questions. We really appreciate your time, and thanks for such an inspiring session.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today. And thank you so much for being such a patient audience.